as well as a format tracking the latest developments on the show today.
Also on World DNA, Kremlin has said that it has received no statement from India about halting oil purchases from Russia. And this is after President Donald Trump said that India had agreed to stop purchases of Russian oil. And this is as part of the US-India trade deal. We bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines. Lots to unpack. This is World DNA.
In order for talks to actually lead to something meaningful, they will have to include certain things, and that includes the range of their ballistic missiles.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirms nuclear talks with the US are scheduled for Friday in Muscat. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio stresses any talks must address Iran's missile programs.
Maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals.
Donald Trump suggests a softer touch on immigration after 2 US citizens killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. About 700 federal officers will be pulled from Minnesota, but mass deportations will continue.
United Nations chief urges US and Russia to quickly renew the New START nuclear treaty, which expires today, warns that expiration of treaty leaves both nations without binding nuclear limits, posing risk to global peace as well as security.
Xi Jinping urges mutual respect in the US-China relations during a call with Donald Trump, warning against arms sales to Taiwan, expresses hope that trade and other bilateral issues could be resolved amicably between US and China.
First day of Ukraine-Russia-US talks in Abu Dhabi ends with both Moscow and Kiev calling discussions productive. No major breakthrough reported. Negotiations are set to continue into a second day.
Gazan health officials say Israeli airstrikes killed 24 people, with Israeli military saying that it launched strikes after firing on its troops. The attacks come days after Israel partially reopens the Rafah crossing with Egypt.
Turkish President Erdogan meets Egyptian counterpart Al-Sisi in Cairo. The leaders sign new partnership agreements and signal united stance on regional crisis involving Iran, Sudan and Gaza.
Panama's President Mulino rejects China's threat over eviction of Hong Kong-based company from Panama Canal ports after the Supreme Court ruling declares company's concession unconstitutional, drawing anger from China.
United States announces a new critical minerals action plan with the EU, Japan and Mexico, including coordinated price floors, stockpiles and partnerships to strengthen supply chains for key minerals used in technology as well as defense.
Iran and the US talks are back on track, at least for now.
Well, both sides say that they are going ahead with new talks in Oman this week. hours after reports suggested that talks were falling apart due to disagreements about the format as well as the venue.
Reports say the US had initially rejected Iran's demand to change the original plan to meet in Istanbul and threatened to walk away, but it later agreed to change the venue to Muscat, after at least 9 countries from the region reached out to the White House at the highest levels. According to Axios, currently only bilateral talks on the nuclear issue are planned in Oman.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that nuclear talks are now scheduled for Friday in Muscat, while thanking Oman for making the arrangements. Also, a White House official has confirmed the meeting that is to take place between Iran and the US.
Now, the uncertainty increased fears of renewed US military action against Tehran. US President Donald Trump also piled the pressure on Iran, refusing to rule out a military action. He refused to do that. Trump, in an interview, said Iran's supreme leader should be worried.
Should the supreme leader in Iran be worried right now?
I would say he should be very worried, yeah, he should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protesters have said, you know, where are the Americans? You promised them we would have their back. Do we still have their back?
We've had their back, and look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear.
So that's the question. If we want them out,
we have peace in the Middle East.
Well, Trump also claimed that Iran had eyed a new nuclear facility after US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, which was last year in the month of June. He said, and I quote, they were thinking about starting a new site in a different part of the country. We found out about it. I said, we are going to do very bad things to you. That is the quote that came from him.
The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said earlier that the US was ready to beat Iran, but insisted that the discussions must cover Tehran's missile and nuclear programs to be meaningful. Iran has repeatedly ruled out discussions on its missiles, saying the only topic on the table was nuclear.
And earlier we even spoke with Ambassador John Bolton, former Assistant to President for National Security Affairs and former United States Ambassador to the UN. Here's an excerpt on what he has to say on the current state of talks between Iran and the US.
Trump is succeeding because I don't think the parties are really growing any closer. I think what Vladimir Putin and the Russians are trying to do is recreate the Russian Empire, and they need Ukraine to do that. So they're taking a very long perspective. And I do think that Zelensky now understands that security guarantees from Trump are not necessarily reliable, which makes it harder for him to agree to a ceasefire where he might lose the potential.
Well, Israel continues to pound Gaza region, killing at least 25 people in its latest strikes.
Now, the IDF claims the attacks were in response to one of its officers being wounded by enemy gunfire. Despite an ongoing US brokered truce moving to its second phase, the Gaza Strip continues to reel under violence, with Israel and Hamas accusing each other of breaching the agreement.
Well, the latest bloodshed follows Israel's partial reopening of the Rafah crossing between Egypt and Gaza, which is also the only gateway to the Palestinian territory that does not pass through Israel.
Few bodies in Israel strikes. Few people were killed in the Israeli strikes in southern Khan Yunis area, and they were brought to Gaza's Nasser hospital. The bodies were brought there, while dozens more were taken to Al-Shifa in Gaza City. Meanwhile, the International Committee of the Red Cross transferred the remains of Gazans killed during the war after Israel handed them over as part of the truce.
Thousands of people remain missing, and thousands of families continue to seek answers about their loved ones. We hope that today's operation will help families in their search for closure.
In another related development, French aid for Gaza arrived at a port in Egypt. French ambassador to Egypt, Eric Chavalier, said that more than 40,000 children in Gaza are suffering from malnutrition. He'd previously highlighted the dire humanitarian situation during an October visit to Rafah region, while he had stressed the urgent need for aid to ease widespread suffering in this region.
More than 40,000 children inside Gaza are suffering from malnutrition, which is known to be one of the major scourges of the current humanitarian situation in Gaza.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has expressed the United States' commitment to talks aimed at ending Russia's war in Ukraine.
Well, this comes as Russian and Ukraine negotiators have characterized the first day of a new round of negotiations in Abu Dhabi as productive. They said that the meetings are set to carry on into second day as well.
I don't want to say talks alone are progress, but it's good that there's engagement going on. I would also caution everyone that on things like this, because there's a lot of sensitivities involved in it, progress is probably not going to be known, even via leaks, until we really have a breakthrough.
The US-mediated talks are the latest in a flurry of diplomacy that has so far failed to strike a deal to halt the war. Ukrainian President Zelensky stressed the negotiations had to lead to real peace and not provide Russia with a new opportunity to continue the war.
The war must truly be brought to an end. Russia must be ready for this. Partners must also be ready to ensure this with real guarantees, security guarantees, and real pressure on the aggressor. It must also be felt now. People in Ukraine must feel that the situation is genuinely moving toward peace and the end of the war, not toward Russia using everything to its advantage and continuing attacks.
Shortly after the talks began on Wednesday, Russian forces struck a crowded market in eastern Ukraine with cluster munitions, killing at least 7 people and wounding 15 others.
Zelensky underscored the human toll from the war, noting that over 55,000 of his country's troops had been killed. It marks a rare assessment of battlefield losses that both Moscow and Kiev have not typically provided.
Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gregi Take said that the content of the talks was on military political issues without elaborating on the same. In fact, the main sticking point in settling the war is the long-term fate of territory in eastern Ukraine, while Moscow is demanding that Kiev must pull its troops out of swathes of Donbas region. As a precondition of any deal, it also wants additionally international recognition that land seized in the invasion belongs to Russia.
Ukraine has warned that ceding ground will embolden Moscow and it will not sign a deal that fails to deter Russia from invading again. As negotiations continue, Europe says that it has been sidelined in the process, even as France and Britain lead efforts to put together a peacekeeping force that could be deployed to Ukraine after any deal.
Moving on then, the world is edging closer to a nuclear turning point. The last remaining arms control treaty between the US and Russia is expiring on Thursday.
Well, the Kremlin now vows that Putin intends to act responsibly should the last nuclear pact with the US be allowed to expire. Our next report decodes what lies ahead for the world's 2 nuclear superpowers.
The world is on the brink of a new arms race. The final surviving nuclear treaty from a series of Cold War-era arms control deals between the US and Russia is expiring. Till now, there was a mutual understanding between the world's 2 superpowers. Now, with the New START treaty expiring, that delicate balance of power is gone. Now there is no cap on nuclear warheads. No restrictions on missiles and bombers. This essentially means that the 2 biggest nuclear powers are now left without any limits for the first time in more than half a century. Russian President Vladimir Putin proposes that the 2 sides should stick to existing missile and warhead limits for 1 more year to buy time. US President Donald Trump is yet to respond to Putin's proposition. He asserts that the treaty must be replaced with a better one. Dmitry Medvedev, who signed the New START deal with Barack Obama in 2010 when Medvedev was Russian president, says that the treaty's expiry should alarm everyone.
Now, such a situation is possible. I am not saying this would immediately mean catastrophe or the start of a nuclear war, but it should concern everyone. Those clock hands would obviously move faster in that case.
While Obama cautions that the expiry will undo decades of diplomacy and could trigger another arms race that will make the world less safe. Without a replacement framework, both sides will be free to expand their nuclear arsenals. Russia and the US control nearly 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. While Russia maintains 4,309 warheads, the US has 3,700. This outnumbers the stockpiles of all the other 7 nuclear-armed nations. But replacing the New START treaty is not simple. Russia has developed new nuclear-capable systems, such as the Burevestnik cruise missile, the hypersonic Oreshnik, and the Poseidon torpedo, that fall outside the New START treaty's framework. Trump has announced plans for a space-based Golden Dome missile defense system that Moscow sees as an attempt to shift the strategic balance. Then there is China. It is rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal. Trump wants to add China to a new framework to oversee the most dangerous weapons known to humans.
You know, the president's been clear in the past that in order to have true arms control in the 21st century, it's impossible to do something that doesn't include China because of their vast and rapidly growing stockpile.
The question now is whether diplomacy can still outrun escalation, or is it just the beginning of a new nuclear era? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The US president said that he had an excellent conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
While he also added that he was looking forward to his visit to the country in the month of April. Notably, the calls came just hours after Xi's virtual meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Well, Trump said that the two leaders had a long and thorough call discussing trade, military issues, Russia's war in Ukraine, Iran, airplane engine deliveries, and China's purchases of US oil and gas. Trump also announced that China has agreed to boost imports of American soybeans.
On his Truth Social platform, Trump called the relationship with Xi Jinping as extremely good, while stressing the importance of keeping ties strong ahead of his planned visit to China in April.
Chinese President Xi Jinping voiced optimism in a call with US President Trump, saying he hopes to steer relations steadily forward through winds and storms and achieve progress. During the call, he stressed that Taiwan remained the most critical issue in US-China relations. He said that Taiwan is China's territory and will never allow it to be separated. Xi Jinping said that US must act with prudence on arms sales to Taiwan.
While noting progress, trade and economic as well as Beijing's concerns in Taiwan, Trump even pledged continued dialogue during his presidency to keep the ties stable. Trump called the US-China relationship the most important in the world.
Meanwhile, before his phone call with Trump, Xi Jinping also held a virtual meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The same day, Xi said he stands ready to chart a new blueprint for China-Russia relations. And Putin accepted invitations to visit China in the first half of 2026 and even attend the APEC regional summit hosted by Xi Jinping in November.
Now, the Trump administration is pulling 700 federal officers from Minnesota, but immigration crackdown and mass deportations in the state would not stop.
Well, the move comes as US President suggested that a softer touch may now be needed on immigration. The fatal shootings of 2 people by federal officers in Minneapolis had sparked widespread outrage. Talking to NBC News, Trump admitted the need for a softer touch, but then added that they are dealing with criminals.
The supreme leader in Iran be worried right now?
I would say he should be very worried, yeah. He should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protesters have said, you know, where are the Americans? You promised them we would have their back. Do we still have their back?
We've had their back. And look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear.
So that's the question. If we want them out,
we have peace in the Middle East.
Trump's border chief, Tom Homan, had earlier announced that 700 officers, federal officers that is, would be withdrawn from Minnesota. He also clarified that 2,000 agents will still remain in the state. It was in another interview that he pledged that removals of undocumented migrants would continue as well.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey welcomed the reduction in federal personnel but said that the immigration operation in Minneapolis must end immediately. The White House says more than 4,000 people have arrested under the Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota so far.
State Governor took a similar stance, calling for faster and larger drawdown of forces. He also called for state-led investigations into the killing of the 2 Minneapolis protesters.
Democratic lawmakers also called for dramatic changes at the Department of Homeland Security as they continue their negotiations over the bill to fund the department. The Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, said that the party is also demanding the end of roving patrols, independent oversight by state and local governments, and no secret police. And there's more on this from our colleague Susan, who sends us this report from New York.
Border Czar Tom Homan says the Trump administration is pulling 700 federal law enforcement personnel out of Minneapolis, citing what he calls unprecedented cooperation from local officials. That brings the federal presence down to about 2,000 agents, with a long-term goal of returning to the pre-surge level of roughly about 150. Now, Homan says that the drawdown was made possible by improved cooperation between local jails and Immigration and Customs Enforcement and a safer operating environment. He stressed that any further reduction would depend on continued cooperation and an end to what he called hostile activity toward officers. Federal agents tied to an ongoing benefit fraud investigation in Minnesota will remain in place. Homan also confirmed that body cameras will soon be made mandatory for all field agents in the city, a move backed not only by Kristi Noem, but also President Donald Trump as tensions ease following weeks of protests in Minneapolis. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Shifting focus then, UK Prime Minister has addressed a scandal involving ex-Labour leader Peter Mandelson.
Mandelson's involvement with the late Jeffrey Epstein continues to make waves in British politics. Keir Starmer has said that Mandelson lied repeatedly and betrayed the UK. The UK leader's statement in Parliament comes just a day after British police formally launched a probe into the allegations of misconduct while Mandelson was in office.
Mandelson betrayed our country, our Parliament, and my party. Mr. Speaker, he lied repeatedly to my team when asked about his relationship with Epstein before and during his tenure as ambassador. I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government.
Mandelson resigned as member of Labour Party on Sunday. Starmer had already fired Mandelson as UK ambassador to the US in the month of September last year. In fact, the latest tranche of Epstein files the files include a letter in which the former diplomat called Epstein his pest pal.
Another document reveals a message in which Mandelson appeared to tell the convicted sex offender and financier that his earlier conviction for procuring a child for prostitution was wrong.
All right, we head into a very short break for now, but news and updates to continue. You're watching World DNA.
And welcome to a brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of southern states.
by blending the special stories, the breaking alerts, and the culture developments as well.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building, coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
And welcome to a brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of southern states.
By blending the special stories, the breaking alerts, and the culture developments as well.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building, coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Samiksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss on this side of the show as well. Let's start with the headlines.
I would say he should be very worried, yeah, he should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
Iran and United States say that they are going ahead with nuclear talks in Oman on Friday, even as President Donald Trump piles pressure on Tehran's supreme leader by saying that he should be very worried.
Zelensky says around 55,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed since Russia's 2022 invasion, with many others missing in action. His remarks come as US, Russian and Ukrainian officials continue talks in Abu Dhabi to end the war.
Maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals.
Donald Trump suggests a softer touch on immigration after 2 US citizens killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. About 700 federal officers will be pulled from Minnesota, but mass deportations will continue.
The UN chief urges US and Russia to quickly renew the New START nuclear treaty, which expires today. Warns that expiration of the treaty leaves both nations without binding nuclear limits, posing risks to global peace and security.
Xi Jinping urges mutual respect in US-China relations during a phone call with Trump, warns against arms sales to Taiwan, expresses hope that trade and other bilateral issues could be resolved amicably between the two nations.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz heads to Saudi Arabia to kick off a Gulf tour as the biggest EU economy seeks to diversify its key trade and energy partnerships. We'll travel to Qatar and UAE next.
Turkish President Erdogan meets Egyptian counterpart in Cairo. The leaders sign new partnership agreements and signal united stance on regional crises involving Iran, Sudan and Gaza.
The US Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is investigating Nike over allegations that the company discriminated against white employees. The commission seeks its hiring and layoff records and claims that its diversity targets may have led to biased treatment.
Manchester City cruise into their 10th EFL Cup final after sweeping aside holders Newcastle United 5-1 on aggregate in semi-final. Pep Guardiola's side will Arsenal for the title.
Well, the India-US trade deal raised a lot of questions regarding India's import of Russian oil. It has brought the tariff tensions down, no doubt, but at the same time, it has triggered a speculation on whether New Delhi will stop buying Russian oil.
Well, Moscow has now clarified its position on this matter, responding to a question. Its Kremlin spokesperson, who said, who said that India is free to buy Russian oil from any supplier in the world. At the same time, Peskov also said that replacing Russian oil will not be easy for India, as the difference in nature of oil could incur additional costs.
While announcing the trade deal with India, US President claimed that India will stop buying Russian oil. But the statement from the Indian Prime Minister made no such mention and no such promise. Not just this, subsequent statements from Indian officials, including Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, do not mention India promising not to buy Russian oil.
While Russia typically supplies 1.5 to 2 million barrels of oil to India, Kremlin has so far maintained that New Delhi has not communicated about any commitment made to US regarding not buying Russian oil. Well, shifting focus to Bangladesh then, the country that's gearing up for elections as early as next week.
It is shaping up to be a pivotal moment in the country's history, with the Awami League banned from participating and the BNP and Jamaat gaining traction.
Also, the International Crisis Group has highlighted uncertainty surrounding the elections, including concerns raised about the process, credibility and the risk of violence. The group has noted that predicting the outcome of 12th February poll is challenging.
Referring to the 2008 elections, in which the Awami League won 50% of the popular vote, the group said that despite the party's decline since then, it still has millions of supporters nationwide. Which party they vote for will have a major bearing on the results.
According to a new nationwide survey, Awami League supporters are showing a significant shift in political preference, with 48.2% now leaning towards the BNP. At the same time, 29.9% said that they will vote for Jamaat. Additionally, 6.5% of them said that they will vote for the National Citizen Party, that is the NCP, and 13% for other parties. About 25, it's abysmal 2.4% that is, who said that they are not yet decided on who they will be voting in the elections.
Now, the upcoming election is taking place in the backdrop of violence and unrest, with at least 16 politicians killed since the election schedule was announced. The government has deployed over 900,000 security personnel to maintain order. Up to 127 million Bangladeshis will go to polls on the 12th of February in the first national elections since Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government fell in August of 2024. All right, we now shift focus to Africa. A massacre has taken place in Nigeria. At least 160 people have been killed by gunmen.
Well, it is one of the deadliest attacks in the country in recent months. The attack reportedly took place in Nigeria's western state of Kwara, where gunmen invaded the village of Boro around 6 p.m. on Tuesday. The search for villagers is still underway, with many having escaped into the surrounding bush. The state government has blamed terrorist cells for the attack.
Kwara's governor has called the attack a cowardly expression of frustration by terrorists, quote unquote. He said it followed the recent successful counter-terrorism operations in the state. Just last month, the Nigerian military claimed to have killed 150 bandits in Kwara. Bandits is the term used for armed gangs in Nigeria who engage in kidnappings and robberies. Reports also say that a number of these bandits have joined hands with religious extremists over the last few years.
Well, recent security issues had forced Kwara state authorities to impose a curfew and even shut schools for several weeks. The curfew was only lifted this Monday.
The latest report comes even as US troops have been dispatched to Nigeria. Washington confirmed that a small team of American soldiers is in the West African country to fight against the Islamic State, West Africa Province terror group.
President Donald Trump claims that terrorists have been targeting Christians in Nigeria. However, Abuja maintains that the terrorists have targeted both Christians and Muslims without distinction. Well, details about the over 160 people who've just been killed in Kwara are still awaited. Well, the next giant leap may not be footprint, but a birth.
As space tourism accelerates, scientists are confronting an unthinkable question. Could the first human baby be born beyond Earth? And if that happens, what kind of human would return? A lot of questions being raised more in this next report as we try to answer that. Take a look.
Private space stations are being planned. Space hotels are being marketed. If you have money, you can buy a ticket and go to space. The domain is no longer exclusively reserved for few spacefaring nations. Human presence beyond Earth is no longer science fiction, and with it comes biology. Experts now warn that as couples spend longer periods in orbit, pregnancy in space may move from theory to reality, but science is alarmingly unprepared. Researchers say we know very little about how male and female fertility behaves in microgravity. Hormones shift, blood flows differently. Sperm motility and egg development may be altered in ways not yet measured. Even conception itself could be affected by zero gravity, where basic biological processes behave unpredictably. The greater danger begins after conception. Then there is the danger of radiation. Without our planet's protective atmosphere, cosmic rays pelt DNA like microscopic bullets. Scientists at Cranfield University suggest the risks are catastrophic. A baby conceived and carried in the void may emerge with developmental abnormalities so profound they defy modern medicine. For now, there are no clear rules, only warnings. Humanity has always expanded first and asked questions later. Space may be no different. But when the frontier involves unborn life, the cost of ignorance could be irreversible. The first baby in space, if it comes, will not just redefine exploration. It will redefine what it means to be human on Earth and beyond it.
A wildlife crisis is unfolding along South Africa's coast.
Well, the African penguin, which is the only penguin native to the continent, is in desperate fight for survival.
Now, on the rocky shores of South Africa, once vibrant penguin colonies now face an empty sea. The distinctive tuxedoed seabirds that once numbered in the hundreds of thousands today remain only few in numbers. In 2024, the African penguin was listed as critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Today, there are thought to be less than 10,000 breeding pairs left in the wild.
Well, the study, which is a joint effort between South Africa's Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment and the UK's University of Exeter, have found that more than 60,000 birds perished from malnourishment between 2004 and 2011 on Robben and Dawson Islands. These are two of the most important breeding areas in South Africa.
The study reveals a grim truth. Over the last 30 years, African penguins have suffered an estimated 80% population collapse driven by pollution, habitat destruction, and food scarcity. Mass starvation has become one of the leading causes of death for this species.
African penguins rely on small schooling fish such as sardines and anchovies as their main food source, but climate change and intensive commercial fishing have sharply reduced fish stocks. Along the southern African coast, these fish are becoming increasingly scarce. Many penguins are forced to travel much further offshore to find food. The shift is taking a toll on both adult survival and the livelihoods of their chicks.
Now, scientists say abandonment is also an issue affecting the young. African penguin parents who normally take turns caring for their chicks on land, but with extreme weather, rising predation and longer, more distant foraging trips, they are increasingly abandoning their eggs and chicks. In a warming world with competing demands on the sea's resources, scientists say without bold steps now, the African penguin could soon disappear from the wild.
Well, Ukrainian boy is dominating Japan's sumo sport.
21-year-old Danilo fled the war in Ukraine to become a sumo wrestler in Japan. And now his rapid rise has taken him one step away from reaching the ancient sport's highest rank. More in this next report. Take a look. Global tech stocks faced renewed selling pressure this week as AI startup Anthropic stunned markets with an end-to-end workflow tool.
Well, the concern is no longer about one product, but the general speed at which AI is improving. Take a look at this next report to find out how this could very much impact your daily lives.
Global technology stocks slid sharply this week after AI startup Anthropic unveiled a new legal automation tool. It is reigniting fears that artificial intelligence is moving faster than expected and eating into traditional software businesses. Anthropic's new tool is built into its Claude AI system. It allows users to automate legal workflows end-to-end. Tasks such as document review, contract analysis, research and compliance checks can now be handled by AI agents with minimal human input. Similar capabilities are being extended to sales, marketing and data analysis. The launch rattled investors. Tech and software as a service stocks sold off across markets, with losses spreading from small firms to large technology names globally. In India, the Nifty Tech Index dropped by more than 7%, marking its worst session since the pandemic era. The concern is not just about one product. Investors are reacting to the speed at which general-purpose AI agents are improving. These systems can complete entire workflows rather than assist with single tasks. Markets are now questioning whether tech companies remain essential when AI can combine multiple functions into one interface. This fear has triggered broad selling, with little distinction between companies once seen as safe from AI disruption and those considered vulnerable. While enterprise tech spending is not disappearing, it is shifting towards faster outcomes. For Indian players, the challenge is no longer just about margins and growth visibility, but the speed of adaptation in an AI-first world. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, shifting focus to cricket then, India pulled off a record chase to defeat Afghanistan by 7 wickets in the men's Under-19 World Cup semi-finals.
Well, the men in blue will now face England in the title clash. Afghanistan won the toss. They elected to bat first. Faisal Khan and Uzairullah Niazai both hit centuries as Afghanistan piled on 310 for 4 from their 50 overs. And that left India needing to pull off the biggest chase in the history of the competition to progress further. Openers Aaron George and 14-year-old Vaibhav Suryavanshi gave India a perfect start. Suryavanshi smashed a scintillating 68 off 33 balls after being dropped twice. George then went on to score a superb 115. Captain Ayush Mhatre added a half-century of his own, and the 5-time winners chased down an Under-19 World Cup record target of 311 for the loss of just 3 wickets, with more than 8 overs to spare. India booked their place in the 10th final and will face England now. The English side are looking for their first win in the competition since 1998.
Well, actor and UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador Kate Blanchett is calling attention to the growing crisis of human displacement.
Blanchett joined filmmakers in Rotterdam for the Displacement Film Fund, and this initiative is created to support and fund filmmakers who are either displaced or have stories about displaced communities. Backed by film industry experts, business leaders and creators, the fund awarded production grants of 100,000 euros to 5 selected filmmakers. Their projects were screened at the 55th International Film Festival in Rotterdam. The films, ranging from 12 to 40 minutes, look at displacement through everyday life. The stories move beyond just war and conflict and focuses on family, belonging and identity.
I think it's time to spring into action. There's a lot to be done. And I think that particularly the events of the last 12 months have galvanized a lot of people who have thought, this doesn't touch me. There is nowhere on earth that isn't touched by human displacement. And so it's upon us to not only find solutions, but to lock arms and know that it's in everyone's benefit to lean into always our humanity and empathy, but to look for solutions and engage with stories outside our own experience. I mean, it's what life is about.
Syrian filmmaker Hassan Kathan, who directed the short film Allies in Exile, says that the films reflect real refugee lives. According to IFFR, 1 in every 67 people worldwide is now forcibly displaced due to war, conflict or persecution. This reality led to the creation of the fund. Blanket even added that while displacement brings pain, these stories show resilience, connection and hope.
We are tired.
Oscar-winning Indian composer A.R. Rahman has hit a new milestone. The 59-year-old has become the first Indian artist to present an immersive film at the Dome in Vancouver.
Well, A.R. Rahman showcased his directorial debut, which was titled Le Masque, which is specially adapted for Dome's 360-degree viewing experience.
The gala screening of the movie drew a packed response. The shows were completely sold out, underlining the strong interest in Rahman's immersive storytelling. Le Masque is an English-language film helmed by A.R. Rahman. The project was earlier showcased at the Cannes Forum and has since travelled to cities like Singapore, Toronto and Los Angeles. What sets Le Masque apart is its multi-sensory approach. The film does not just rely on visuals, it also uses scent as part of the story, allowing audiences to experience the narrative through both sight and smell. Speaking about the project, Rahman stated that Le Masque has been a passion project for him. He added that the film explores new ways of storytelling and helps in sharing Indian narratives with global audience. With its Vancouver Dome showcase, the film continues its journey across immersive platforms worldwide, reflecting A.R. Rahman's growing interest in blending technology, art and cinema in new formats. Alright viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. We'll be slipping into a short break, leaving you with all climate stories making headlines across the world. Do come back. This is WION World is One. Global updates continue on the other side.